All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. We are at the November 29th, 2024 working group meeting. Normally we start off with new members, but for the first time in a while, we don't have anyone new who has signed up between last week and this. However, I'll give the opportunity if there's anyone who hasn't had the chance to ever introduce themselves and would like to, please, please do. Well, all right then. Well, with that, I guess we'll just jump right into the meat of today's meeting. I'd like to introduce Craig Harvey, who will be going over the Agra Innovate program with us. So please, Craig, take it away.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dan. It's pleased to meet everybody. I have not introduced myself, so I'm the manager of the Agri-Innovate program here at Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. This is a program that's part of the Sustainable CAP framework for those of you that are familiar with it. And the purpose of this is really just to put out the inform you of our program. Like one of the primary focuses of our program is we have four primary priority areas, but one of them is robotics. So and we're not getting a lot of robotics projects, so I thought it would be good to give you a little canned presentation. I'll go through it fairly quickly, and if there's any questions or answers, I can, hopefully we can do that. And anybody want to follow up with me later on, I'd be more than happy to talk with anybody. So with that, I'll share the screen. Hopefully this works as I expect, because I'm not super familiar with Zoom. So let me hopefully this works. I'm not sure. Does that work? Do you guys see anything there?
No,
Nope.
nothing's come up.
Okay, maybe I got to do share first then. Sorry. Uh, maybe okay. Sorry.
Yeah, Craig, you're gonna do share, and then you just have to share your presentation, like in when you set it to presenter mode.
Okay.
So when you share the window, you got to make sure you share the right window. That's all.
Yep.
We'll alert you if there's something scary
Do,
that comes up.
We can see your PowerPoint right now.
There,
There you
you're
oh,
go.
good.
you do?
You're
Yeah,
Okay.
we're
good.
good.
We're all
Okay.
set.
Excellent. That's the main thing. So you get to see it. So as I just indicated, this is Agri Innovate. It's a part of the sustainable CAP framework. We're now it's a 5-year framework. We're in the year two right now. It's not a very big program. We're talking about, between 10, 50, 10, $20 million a year funding that we have. Um, and because of that, and we fund up to $5 million a project, we don't fund that many uh, projects within in a given year. So maybe we'll only have a half a dozen kind of idea. So I'm just trying to give you the idea that this is a sort of a boutique technology commercialization fund. We're not looking for volume. We're looking more for quality. So that's the purpose of what I'm reaching out for. Uh, but even if it isn't the exact fit, you can always feel free to look at our website, contact, or we have an email address, and we can always direct you to perhaps another area where it might be more suitable. So just super quick, 5-year program ends March 31st, 2028. It's a repayable program. Just on repayable, there's two streams of repayment we have. One is unconditional, so for larger, better capitalized companies, it's a de facto unconditional, but the repayment is deferred 1 year until after project completion and continues for 9 years with monthly payments on the loan. And then we also have a conditional repayment. This is more directed for incenting SMEs or emerging innovators. We have a threshold approach being applied. So if the revenue is above a certain dollar threshold, which is linked to the contribution that's dispersed, the repayment occurs then. Otherwise, it's forgiven in that particular year. So that can be used for, especially if the company is just at the cusp of getting commercialization and, growing pains could result. conditional repayment is something that could be favorable for them. The program is in a quick nutshell here. It's directed at commercialization, demonstration, and adoption of innovative technologies and processes. So what we're expecting is that the technology needs to be sufficiently de-risked, so it needs to be commercially ready. In order to come to us, the projects need to be sufficiently capitalized also. So the sources of funds need to be identified. So basic eligibility, this is pretty consistent with many programs. This is for-profit focused, so they need to be Canadian incorporated. Just a repeat of what we had before, talks about the three types of streams we have: commercialization, adoption, and demonstration. Demonstration is really in the lens of market demonstration. So as I sort of alluded, we're on the TRL later on, like 7+. So it's not about technical demonstration. So the expectation is you have your earlier technical aspects demonstrated. Typically, that would be through a pilot scale or bench scale, something that would really sufficiently de-risk. The same thing with adoption. We're not looking at just straightforward adoption of new equipment called state-of-the-art. The expectation is that it needs to be adapted in some way or significantly customized, such that it almost results in a new technology being formed. And then commercialization is just, pretty straightforward what that is. Our priorities are fairly broad, like it's an agnostic program, but we do identify 4 particular areas on our website that we are interested in focusing on. So for this working group, the robotics is listed there, but as you can probably imagine, the robotics probably interfaces with or intersects with several of the other priorities. As also indicated there, our priority is on commercialization or market demonstration. Lower priorities placed on adoption projects, particularly ones that benefit primarily the applicant. And by that mean, we're looking to fund ideally tech developer type companies that have the intention of replicating their technology broadly. And as you can imagine, many of those are poorly capitalized, so there is a particular need for a program like this. Some of the reasons why you may want to consider the AgRobotics program, as I mentioned, it is repayable, but the repayable terms are fairly decent. It's interest free, and it occurs over a large number of years after the project completed. So depending on the nature of the project, typically there's a 1-year grace period, and then repayment would happen over a 9-year period. And we have the option for conditional repayment. There's also the stacking ratio that can be considered. So we typically fund 50-50, but depending on if you're involved with an underrepresented group, we can increase that up to 60-40. The IP generally rests with your company also too. So it's not, we're just a funder, not we're not an active participant in the development of your project. So you would keep the IP. The assessment criteria are fairly broad and complex, but the primary focus is on the innovation. So when we talk with the various companies, we really focus on making sure that the innovation is of a sufficient technical level, meaning that it's at the technology readiness level, and it represents a significant improvement over what is commercially available already in the marketplace. And by that I mean not just the latest version of a new, the new iteration of a state-of-the-art kind of technology. So this is not, in a sense, a modernization program. This is more of a tech development program. And then, the other ones there needs to be a sufficient market for it. The financing needs to be sufficiently sourced. And I mentioned some of the priorities there. So alignment with the AgRobotics priorities and other Government of Canada priorities. and of course, the applicant's capacity to undertake and complete the project and deliver the benefits expected after the project is completed. So just very quickly, like many programs in agriculture, we have or at least in the innovation space, there's a two-step process. So the first is the completed project summary form or pre-screening form. That's essentially just a two-page document, guides you through what we're looking for, the significance of the innovation, the technical readiness, and the benefits to Canada. We would use that as a basis for discussing with any firm that was interested in applying, and potentially engaging with our sector experts, notably in the science and technology space. And only the ones that were deemed to be the most suitable for our program would be invited to submit a full application. The reason we do it this way is really to minimize the level of effort for potential applicants up front, so that they're not spending, potentially, dozens of hours preparing an application when we already know there is fairly large holes in their suitability for the program. So at the end of the day, we only invite a handful of applicants to submit a full application, and that takes 100 business days. So you can imagine that it's quite a rigorous process we go through. The positive point is that once an application is submitted and we deem it complete, there's a cost eligibility date assigned. So that basically means that costs can be incurred at your own risk at that point. And assuming we eventually sign a contribution agreement, you will be eligible to be reimbursed on those expenses, assuming they're eligible and all that kind of stuff. So there's just a few examples of the kinds of projects we do. They're just generic, but the whole concept is really it has to be new to the Canadian ag sector, not just to some subsector. So that sets the bar a little bit higher. A middle example might be more relevant for you guys, taking robotics that are used in non-ag related sectors and modifying them somehow or customizing them to be used in an ag application for the first time. So a traditional example could be, and probably doesn't apply anymore, but taking those robotic arms that are used in car manufacturing and adjusting them somehow to be used, just say for moving plants around in a vertical farming operation. So that's just a quick overview. Hopefully it was clear to everybody, and I gladly would like to hear any questions or comments or anything to hopefully help give you a better perspective of what this program is about.
Yeah, it's Murray Good here of Mycionics. We're a mushroom harvesting company just outside of Dorchester, Ontario. I just talked to my CTO, where Whitecrest is a mushroom farm, but we spun Mycionics out of it. And he had said we may not be eligible because we're not a farm. Is that correct? Doesn't sound right, but
well, you'd have to be an incorporated entity and within Canada. So I think it sounds like you would be eligible from that point of view. That's but you can't be an individual or I believe a partnership. It has to be an incorporated entity.
Yeah, Mycionics is incorporated. We are commercializing. Our first install was in Netherlands in September, and we're in Vancouver as of now installing mushroom harvesting, and we are selling outright right now. So we would be eligible for the program being
it's possible that, but because the program is directed at spurring commercial application, if it's already being sold within Canada, that's not what the objective of this program is. It'd be for you to develop that technology to get it to the point of commercial, like, being able to sell those units.
Okay, so the farm.
I think you're pretty close to what they're trying to accomplish, Murray. I would follow directly with them on this program, because you're just commercializing.
Yeah,
So,
okay. Yeah, Joe, you know us, so
yeah,
okay.
Okay.
yeah.
Well,
There's also just
Murray and Mycionics is probably a good a good organization to test the model here.
okay, but there's different ways. There's the commercialization angle, but there's also if you've had some limited quasi commercial success, say, there's also the market demonstration aspect. So if you need to, create a bunch of reference sites or that kind of stuff or demonstration units that
yeah.
could be used for attracting or developing the market, that's an area that's also possible with the program. Mary, if you think it's worthwhile, it'd be best that we can have a chat separately. I'm not sure if there's a chat feature here. I can perhaps put my coordinates in the in the
Yeah,
chat stream.
I got your contact. I will get the
Oh,
CTO and the CEO, and we'll get on a call next week with you. I think we, like Dale, you're right. We would be
okay, excellent.
perfect for this. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Chuck, go ahead.
Yeah, I think my question was related, and this is always the question of, what is pre-commercial, and because mine and let's say Murray's idea of pre-commercial and AAFC's idea of pre-commercial might not align. And so my kind of question was, can we have a follow-up where we have a piece of technology and we say, here's where it's at. I'd rather figure it out ahead of time. When we're working with someone, you figure it out ahead of time. Is this qualify, rather than wasting time on the application just for someone to come back and say, hey guys, you should have asked this. So can we have that? It's okay to have those conversations ahead of an application.
Oh, 100%. That's why we have this two-step process. The
Yeah.
project summary form is just to help get the ball going in that discussion. If you don't feel it's worthwhile to submit a project summary form, we can also have an inquiry call and we can map out some of the suitability there.
Yep.
Like we're not trying to get rid of people from our program. We're just trying to make sure we write their expectations of what this program is about.
Yep.
The program has evolved over the years. It has had a bit more of a general, business development approach in the past, but due to rescoping and less funds available for the overall program, we felt it was more prudent to focus on the development of the innovation ecosystem, and particularly the companies that have the broadest impact. So the tech focus is what I would say.
Yeah.
Right. And then you're talking about like a 10-year repayable loan is kind of what this program is.
Yeah, if you're
Yep.
if you're a small firm and
Mhm.
you're like an SME in a government sense, it is over up to 10 years after project completion.
Yep.
But if we do go with conditional repayment, and we have the discretion to go with that, where we felt that it incents small companies or emerging innovators, which is what the focus of the program is, we can make a conditional repayment. And automatically, when we go with conditional repayment, there is a slight deferral, additional deferral in when the repayment will restart.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Sounds
Excellent.
like FedDev sounds like that way. Because the other side of our story is we've developed a system for the moving beds. That's about 20% of the market. We have about 90% or 80% completion on the in-room harvesting. So there is another component to it. And probably like yours, Chuck, there's multiple things that need to be developed for multiple crops or situations. So
Yep.
yeah, understood. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, I'll be sure to follow up, Craig. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Perfect. Thanks very much. Were there any other questions or comments for Craig?
Greg, are there any success stories that you can use as a template for the group? Like
Well,
with this
that's a
program
great.
you've been happy with?
Sure, that's an excellent question, Joe. So I guess I'll say a first statement. Because it is tech development, the risk profile of many of our applicants are a bit higher than perhaps you would think. Even if it is a nice project from a technology point of view, there's so many other risk factors that play a role. Like if you build a large commercial plant, just say it costs $30 million, and you just barely have the amount of money to get it going, invariably there's growing pains, and some of these companies face challenges later on. So we do everything we can to sort of mitigate these kinds of risks, but we also are trying to incent. So there's sort of a conflictual kind of thing there. In terms of to answer your question more directly, though, we funded stuff in the alt protein space. It's a bit of a controversy, I guess. We've funded some insect companies because we feel that that's an area that's of importance longer term. But one of the projects that I like to point to as a good success story, it's basically taking hyperspectral technology, which is applied in scientific research, and using it in a meat processing plant. So they took the requisite technical knowledge there, adapted the spectral technology scanning in a meat processing line. And normally this is done either through visual inspection or X-rays, but the extra wavelengths and things like that, and the data analytics can be used to detect all kinds of things, like a little piece of a plastic glove that's all bloody that you wouldn't be able to see, to even looking at the marbling in the meat for grading and all kinds of stuff like that. Has a lot of practical applications because there's lots of meat processing plants, and can also be used to reduce the likelihood of costly recalls. So to me, that's like the gold standard, what we want. Clearly tech development, clearly emerging, clearly large benefits to the ag sector. We definitely don't expect every project to be of that nature, but that's what we were aiming for.
Perfect.
Oh, and that's good, and I'm happy to hear that you're willing to take some risk, because one of the concerns that we always have is, or that people have when they're going to apply, is that, well, if it's going to be a sure thing, then it would prevent some people from entering into the project. But if you're willing to take some risk and whatever, and that's good to hear.
Yeah, like we're definitely willing to take risk, but as you would imagine, there's limits to what that would be. Like we're still a bit risk averse in terms of the financing. So the applicants still need to demonstrate that they have their portion of the funds. We can accept applications, and we have done this on times that they don't have the remainder of the funds, but we'll place their application on hold. Maybe they can use that for marketing purposes to attract the rest. But as a general statement, companies that don't have the sufficient resources lined up, those projects generally still have problems even 6 months or a year later. So, we are sort of cautious with dedicating too much resources and assessing those projects prematurely.
Excellent. Any last questions for Craig before we move forward in our agenda? No?
Right. Can I just add one other thing?
Sure.
So I think it's great to have you involved in the working group and making this presentation. And I think you never know when something might kind of bubble up when we put together a project. So sometimes over the course of the winter, and as these meetings progress, people may not have an idea today, as to what they might do, but by all means, keep in touch and keep in contact with the group, because part of the role of this group and the range of people that are part of it is to assemble a team that can assist with a project, and having your expertise and having the other groups, by all means, don't forget about us. Okay.
Oh, of course.
And stay in contact.
Well, I can talk with Dan and determine, if it's reasonable if we become a member and partake on a regular basis. For now, I was just viewing it more from to be honest, a selfish sense of, we have funds available and we want to do outreach to make sure people are aware of our program. But I get what you're saying, and it makes sense to me.
Exactly. You just never know when something will come together. Okay.
Yeah.
cause I think we're all rowing in the same boat here. So we all have the same goals at the end.
I will say an overarching statement, which I think is interesting, because we have received several hundred inquiries over the life of the current program, and almost 200 project summary forms. The number of projects that I get in the robotics space that come across our desk is fairly low. I would have thought it'd be much higher, considering it's a priority area. I'm not sure why that is. Like we've had maybe there's just not a lot of tech development happening in the ag space in robotics. But
I think there's just a lack of knowledge. Like honestly, like for a lot of the startup people that I talk to, like navigating the space as to what's out there and available is just very confusing. And the more that we have meetings like this and the more that we talk about them, I'm not surprised that you haven't had a lot of applications. It's just, where do you dedicate your time and how do you move forward? So I think that's why we have this group, why we have people like yourself on the call.
No, it's an area of priority for us, and I'm very happy to have the opportunity to present to you. And if anybody would like to have more of a one-on-one type discussion, I'd be glad to have a chat or get somebody on my team to talk with you.
Andrew, I'll give the last comment to you.
Morning. I have my coffee too, so I'm hyper. Chuck, you just said something. I was literally typing a message to Dan about this. Craig, my name's Andrew. I run a startup called Chariot. We use cameras to determine the mechanical health of equipment. So really cool stuff. We're Canadian, but I'm in the States raising money because, you can probably start to picture the whole, Canada's not really liking risk. This whole thing was really cool. And I started to get this idea of, as a startup, and Chuck, you kind of walk down this path a little bit, is I'm learning all of the different programs, right? Kane, SCAP, I said OCI, all these things. And I realized that I haven't actually seen a nice map of everything, right? If you're a TRL 1 to 5, apply here. If you're a 6 to 7, you should apply here. If you're a farm, you can maybe apply to these. And I'm just kind of wondering, maybe that's something for us as the working group to look at over the next few months to maybe do a presentation. I realize I'm basically signing up to do this presentation, where we have different groups like you, Craig, kind of give some information of like, here's where the ideal people fit, right? So that way it kind of helps to Chuck what you were saying is, where do people go? Because that's probably we've already had a bunch of meetings with different groups like that. Because again, I don't know about your group, but there's stacking concerns. If you go through different government programs, you can't do certain things. If you're a company, you can't get shred, or you can get shred, but you can't apply for something else, all these things. So I like what you were going with that with Chuck, because it is confusing for a startup like me, where I'm trying to figure out what programs can I go to. And Craig, you're talking, I'm like, that's cool. I can't apply because of XYZ until I have that conversation with you. So,
well, and you're already busy. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not like you're sitting at home wondering. I think Bridget and Dan, are you okay? I'm assuming you took some notes on this, and I'm okay with a group within this group, spending a few minutes on this, because like there is an app through there's an app on funding from Canada. There is some various web pages that do these kinds of things, but how they apply to different organizations is confusing. And so I think we can have a follow-up discussion as part of our working group as to how we would map these things out. I think that'd be a great project over the next few months.
Yeah, we can certainly add that into maybe like the last one was data. Maybe the next roundtable is how do we simplify this for companies?
Excellent. All right. Craig, thank you very much for taking the time to present to us today. It's much appreciated. And thank you everybody for your questions and comments about the presentation.
Thank you, everybody.
We'll move forward into meetings, upcoming events. We don't have any new ones added on this week, but we do have some coming up next week, December 3rd, 4th. So if available, do check those out. And then next up, we'll head into the project updates. So there'll be a couple from me, and then we'll pass it on to Bridget as well. We have been sharing on social media the weekly speaker announcements. It's been going through our Grove page, but we have now established our own AgRobotics working group LinkedIn page. So that is where we'll be sharing the announcements going forward. I've attached the link in the agenda, but I will also post it in the meeting chat here in just a few minutes. We've also done the same for Innovation Farms Ontario. So please do follow those pages so that we can get our follower count a nice boost right off the start. And that's where they'll be from now on. Another update is we are creating a job board on the AgRobotics Working Group website. So if we thought it would be a good idea to sort of any job opportunities we learn of, being able to compile them into one area. So if you know somebody who knows somebody kind of thing, they can check out what kind of jobs are available in the industry. So on that note, if anyone does learn of any job opportunities, please send them our way, and we'd be happy to throw them up there to make them a little more easily accessible. With that, I will pass it on to Bridget for the summer 2025 research projects.
Thanks, Dan. And I did just share the document in the chat as well, which Dan had sent out in the agenda. So this was the original working group 5-year priorities that had been compiled. And I apologize, this was before my time, so I wasn't part of that original discussion. But this is the projects that when Chuck is referencing the research that he's been doing with the various groups, this is where that is coming from. So we were today just going to touch base on some of the projects that have been going on the past summer. And then there's also some updates as we look forward to planning for next year in terms of Chuck's going to update a little bit on some of the ones that we may have to kind of reevaluate. And then our hope for is not today to make the decision, but to get everyone thinking about connections with farmers or robotic solutions that you think should be trialed in the industry so that we can compile these and then bring them back to the working group. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Chuck, if you want to touch on the ones that you guys were working on this past summer.
So, if I kind of just started, I was going to go through your this document.
Yep,
right?
that's fine.
And so just for the group to be updated with, so the Nexus robot, we did not complete that trial in this year because the company went into receivership. And so that they are still working to get themselves out. But that working with the Nexus, I think, should be put on hold going forward just because of the uncertainty. The soil sampler project, not a lot has happened with that because we're still compiling the data from the probe that we want to use. So that so we've done another probably 800 soil tests for validation of the sensor probe, and that data will be compiled over the course of this winter. The ROI information and the performance of the farm droid went into year 2, and that as did the weed scouting project. So I think the outcomes of the year 2 farm droid, I think with Jeff Farintosh talked about that at a previous meeting, and there'll be a report coming out that summarizes what happened with that. And in terms of, there was some good stuff, and then there was some not so good stuff as the outcome of the of that project. And So that will carry on for a third year going into 2025. And same thing with the Oreo robot. There is a the laser weeding module was delayed. It's actually being shipped finally this month. So we will have a laser weeder module for the Oreo robot for 2025. And the Picada lens system, that is still an ongoing trial. We did winter wheat. We did some corn samples with it, and then the muck station did lots of tests with that as well, as far as I'm aware. I haven't seen any updates on that recently. If I move down to the Cave Spring site with the TED robot, made a lot of progress in 2024 with getting the robot to run autonomously and getting the fields mapped out. The UV light module is sitting in my shop now, and we've been running tests. We've been running tests on the UV light, mostly on temperature of the lighting fixtures and making sure they don't overheat, and as well as the wavelengths. So that project is going to be we'll be doing more with that in 2025. We also just outfitted the TED robot just last week. NIO sent some technicians along with our technician from France, and they have changed the autonomy stack of the TED robot to make it officially a fully autonomous robot. So they've added some safety features and some other functionality to that, as well as an electric undervine grape hoe. So when we've been talking with the various vineyards about what they actually need the robot to do, this grape hoe was fairly high on their list, and so that'll be going forward for the next year. The apple harvester project stalled back in the springtime. One of the reasons why it stalled was that the producers were unwilling to fill out a funding grant to try an apple harvester, and the growers that we talked to just weren't that interested, or were not convinced the technology was going to work. And there's lots of reasons for that. So we'll be having some meetings again over the course of the winter. And I think our subcommittee that we had formed will probably have to start meeting again to go over this process and to see what opportunities there are for 2025. Harvesting is still a high priority on a lot of producers' lists, but it's also the most challenging part of robotics, and that's going on. The Oz robot, I don't have much to update on that one. So I think that's about it for right now, Bridget. I don't know if there's anything else I want to go over, but that's kind of where things are at.
Thanks, Chuck. I was going to also add to that we are working with Haggerty on just making a little bit more of a simplified form with all the research that's being done, so that there's a little bit more of a easier to digest research report in terms of impact to yield, impact to ROI. Again, a lot of these projects are still very much in infancy, but just when we are presenting things like this to the working group, having that a little bit more in a form that's digestible across each project. So that's also in the works at the moment. And you mentioned the subcommittee. So yeah, Dan and I will put that on our list to start that conversation again as well. And I would say to that as well, we did have this past week, the AgRobotics validation subcommittee started meeting. So that side of it is essentially also making a framework that's available for working group members for us when we're getting new technology solutions that we're trialing. We're trying to build a little bit of a framework to evaluate if that technology is ready to be trialed. And it's just looking at kind of a 9 component matrix in terms of the hardware reliability, software reliability, that kind of thing. So we're going to be meeting monthly until the spring, and then we're hoping to have a little bit more of a framework developed that we can then present to the working group for your feedback. Hopefully that we can then use for the trials this coming summer. So again, it's a little bit more, obviously each robot and each system is very different, but a little bit more to kind of evaluate across different solutions. So I guess with that in mind, the next thing that we'd be looking for from the members is if there are any producers or any commodity groups or any robotic solutions that you think should be brought forward to the working group. We don't need them right now, but if you want to send them to Dan and I over the next week or two, we are looking to compile that. And I think that's the next step, is when we look at the research projects this coming summer, making sure that we're still trying out new solutions in the industry, and also any producers or farmers that have the interest in trying out robots, that we're funneling those into the working group so that we can actually like get those robots in their fields and try them out. Any questions or any comments or concerns? Cries of anguish, as my English teacher used to say.
I think
Great.
we yeah.
Dan?
I think you summed that up pretty good, Bridget.
Okay, Dan, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. Winter events. The working group is going to have booths at 2 events this upcoming winter: the Ontario Fruit and Veg Convention and the London Farm Show. Currently we're in chat with Grey Bruce Farmers Week and the Ottawa Valley Farm Show, but that will depend on space availability. If anyone knows of any other events or demonstrations that you think would be good for the working group to go to, we do have a list, but there's always new ones to learn about. So please send those to either Bridget or myself. Bridget, go ahead.
So this is a follow-up question to that. So there are some other things that we're working on regarding the event side of things as well. So we are going to be hosting tours of the Grove. So for individuals who are on the call, Western Fair in the Grove, there's an agri-food incubator, there's growing chefs. It's still very much a project that's still kind of starting out, but we are, during the farm show, which is March 5th to 7th, going to be hosting tours of people. If you're interested in just seeing the space and the facility, you can go in, and from 8 till 9 in the morning is when we'll be running them, just because it's for companies that are exhibiting at the show. But we will have the booth at the show as well for the working group. And then we also had discussed doing more of an in-person networking event during the farm show, as well as potentially during the fruit and veg convention. So if that is of interest to the group, that's kind of what we had internally been talking, that it might be good to have some face-to-face networking at events that people are already at. So we're open to feedback on that. I'm going to assume if we hear nothing that it's okay, people are excited, because I should have clarified that. Does anyone not like the idea?
Yeah, I guess that'll be easier.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Sounds good.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks for adding that, Bridget. Kelly, yes, let's chat about the Ottawa Farm Show. I'd love to.
Yeah, I might be able to help with, let's chat about what kind of space, because we have space and would very much love to make sure you're there. Last year, there was a lot of interest, a lot of questions about robotics at that particular show. So let's see what we can make happen, okay?
Excellent. I love that. I will, after the meeting, I will send you an email, and we can chat about that.
Thanks.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Kelly. All right, heading into funding announcements and opportunities. We don't have any new ones that have been added on for this week. But as always, please do check the ones that we do have. Hopefully something works out for you. And with that, we'll move it into the roundtable section of the of the meeting. So I'd like to open it up if anybody has any questions, problems, queries, or cries of anguish, apparently. Yeah, Chuck, go ahead.
Not a cry of anguish. The yesterday I had the opportunity to speak at the Precision Ag class with John Sulik at the University of Guelph, and it went very well. Lots of good questions and lots of engagements from the students that were there, so that was much appreciated. And I had an update chat with Tyler while I was there, and he came in to kind of judge my performance of the class. So he didn't throw any tomatoes or anything, so I think that was all good. And then Mehmet Musa gave me a tour of the robotics lab, like an update, which I haven't had for a while, and lots of good stuff going on there. And I think it's good for us to kind of keep in mind like how much capacity we have within this province of stuff that can get done. It was really really interesting. So I appreciated being able to do that.
Excellent. Thanks for the update, Chuck. Anybody else? No? Don't all speak at once. All right. Oh,
Hi,
hi.
this is Deb Chani here. This is my first time here, so I I'm a little confused whether I'm at the right place. So that's what I have a quick question. So so basically, I'm a CEO of Speaker Systems, and it's an American company. I also have a company where we do digital waste management in Canada. And one of our partners is Woodpecker Microsystems, where we do, this is an American company, and we give actionable insights to farmers, ranchers, conservationists, and all. Do you think I'm at the right spot? What I hear from you is this working group is more on fund applications and all. What I'm looking for is if I am able to support those, because I believe in Ontario, in Canada, it has to be a Canadian company, right? And the Canadian company, what I do with like the director, which I am in, we do digital waste management, and we partner with these American companies as I'm the CEO of that company. So I was just wondering, is there a way that we could support you guys with your innovation with our sensor technology? We have sensors, remote sensors. We use it for flood, water levels, pH levels in the soil, and all this. So I'm just wondering, I did sign up for this group, but I hope I can add value to this working group. Or is this working group solely focused in, you know, fund applications and things like that?
I can jump in unless you were going to, Chuck.
You can go first.
Okay, so you are still in the right place. We talk about funding just because we do get a lot of funding opportunities, and we want to make sure that we're dispersing them across the ecosystem. But it isn't necessarily that the group just exists for funding specifically. The working group is focused on bringing new solutions to market, so connecting producers and farmers with new technology solutions, but also connecting new technology solutions with the ecosystem, with the goal of kind of advancing all of the different partners in the industry. So I guess in terms of the company, it probably would be helpful for the group if you want to put the links to your companies in the chat, just because there was a few different ones that you had mentioned.
Right.
But yeah, it's not just funding specific.
Oh, that's great then. I just wanted to know. I thought this was a great, I read about AgRobotics. I was talking to Ontario Innovation Center, Robert Macmillan, and then I came to know about this working group. I thought it's very interesting. But I also want to be there at the right place, like if I can add value. So that's the thing. For sure, I'm going to share the link on this chat box, and looking forward to working with you. Sounds like interesting projects you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think but what we're doing is we try to put all the pieces together. You know,
Right.
so the farmer is, the farmer is key to this.
Okay.
The end user, the customer is key to this. The
Mm-hmm.
technology solution is part of this, and sometimes there's multiple pieces of technology that have to come together.
Mm-hmm.
Academia and researchers are part of this to help validate and support the systems, and then we have funding which helps to pay for it. So like there's it's like an ecosystem that comes together, and so it might seem like it takes time,
Right.
but everything kind of has to click into place. The term that I hear quite often from Joe is like, you flip the cards over, right? And then suddenly you see that there's a project just together, and you just
Right.
don't know when that's going to happen.
Sure.
Okay?
Okay, perfect. So I did share the woodpecker and I shared a couple of others which I do. So happy to talk anytime. And I'll definitely join your group and talk. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Bridget?
And I was just going to say a follow-up too. Thank you so much for sharing that feedback, because I think for Dan and I, as we grow with the group, like it's helpful to know that maybe for somebody who's joining the first time, it's like, oh, I didn't think I'm in the right spot. We wouldn't want you to leave thinking that it's just funding specific. So thank you very much for speaking up and mentioning that. It's quite helpful for us.
Right. And even in the list of the drop-down menu for the membership, there are there are a whole bunch of options, but I think I spoke to one of your team members and they said, okay, add yourself as manufacturer, but we are not manufacturers. So we are system integrators. We are IT specialists, and especially the woodpecker, which I forwarded to you. We've been in the market for over 20 years. We work in various California vineyards and all. And we're really exploring possibilities, working together with group like innovators like you guys, if we can help you with our sensors. We have very advanced sensors and analytics which we work with.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Were there any other thoughts or comments? Questions? No? All right. As always, we have our list of articles at the bottom of the agenda. So please do check those out. Keep up to date. Lots of interesting stuff in there. And if there's nothing else, then I will bring the meeting to an end for this week. Everybody, thank you so much for joining. Thank you again to Craig for your presentation. It's much appreciated. Everybody have themselves a good weekend, and we will see you in December.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
very much, everybody. Take care.